The email alert sounded on a Tuesday afternoon, just as that sleepy feeling after lunch was making the office quiet. My name is Sarah, and I've been a regular part of Pennington Financial for the last 23 years. Just a small piece in a big, predictable company. I've watched bosses come and go, and the coffee in the break room change from pretty good to terrible and back to just okay. But the name of the person who sent this email was not predictable at all. Daniel Astor, Mr. Astor, my boss. Or as some of us older workers secretly called him, the kid boss. Daniel is only 32, very smart with a fancy degree and a habit of walking back and forth when he talks like a tiger in a cage thinking about its next move. He took charge of our department 6 months ago, and he definitely shook things up. He was always nice, but he had a kind of intense, restless energy that made people like me feel like old-fashioned furniture in a very modern room solid, but not really part of the new look. The subject of the email was just quick chat. My heart started beating a little faster, the way it does when you hear someone walking behind you on a dark street. A quick chat with the main boss usually doesn't mean you're getting a raise or a compliment, especially when it comes out of nowhere. My brain, which is great at imagining the worst, started going through all the bad things that could happen. Did I miss a deadline? Did someone complain about me? After all this time, were they finally letting me go? The thought sent a cold shiver through me that had nothing to do with the freezing office air. I looked around my cubicle, my own little spot in a huge room of gray walls. Pictures of my kids, David and Emily, smiled at me from their frames. A dying plant Emily gave me sat on my desk, a sign of my bad gardening skills, but also my refusal to give up. I had kept it alive for a whole year. This small space and these little things belonged to me. The idea of it all being taken away, or of having to leave before I was ready, felt like a punch in the stomach. I opened the email. Sarah, could you please stop by my office around 3:30 p.m. today for a quick chat? Daniel. No friendly marks, no smiley faces, just straight to the point, which was his style. For the next 90 minutes, I couldn't focus. I read the same reports over and over without understanding anything. I quietly asked Carol from accounting if she'd heard any gossip about bad things happening. Carol, who was amazing at finding out, office secrets, just shrugged. Haven't heard anything, hun? She whispered. But you know how these young bosses are. It could be a big deal or nothing at all. That was a big help, Carol. At 3:28, I stood up, straightened my sensible blue shirt, and took a drink of water. My reflection in my dark computer screen showed a woman with a few more lines around her eyes, her hair more gray than blonde. I could see the worry in my eyes. Pull yourself together, Sarah, I whispered. You've dealt with worse things than a boss in his 30s. The walk to Daniel Astor's office is short, just down the hall and to the left. But emotionally, it felt like walking a tightrope a mile long. The hallway seemed extra quiet, and the air smelled like cleaner and old coffee. The normal smell of my workday, but today it felt strange and full of worry. His office was the corner one with the big window looking out over the busy city. A view for the important people. The door was open just a little bit. I could hear him talking quietly, but I couldn't tell what he was saying. I wasn't sure if I should knock or wait. My hand felt sweaty as I lifted it and tapped softly on the door. Come in, Daniel's voice said, sounding clear and surprisingly calm. I pushed the door open and went in. His office was very different. From the rest of the floor, it was modern and clean, with gray walls and art I didn't get. A big wooden desk took up most of the space, with only a laptop, a pen holder, and a single photo on it. He was standing by the window with his back to me. He wasn't on the phone, he was by himself. He turned around when I came in, and for a second, he didn't look like the kid boss. He looked deep in thought, maybe even a little worn out. Sarah, thanks for coming in. Close the door, please. Have a seat. He pointed to one of the 2 comfortable chairs in front of his desk. I closed the door, and the click of the lock sounded loud and final. I sat on the very edge of the chair, my hands clutched in my lap. For a moment, we just sat in a thick, heavy silence. He looked out the window for another second before he turned to me, and I couldn't tell what he was thinking. This was it. I braced myself for bad news. He wasn't walking back and forth, which was new. Then he walked to his desk but leaned on the front of it instead of sitting behind it. It was a casual pose that threw me off. So, Sarah, he started, his voice quiet. It was not the tone I expected at all. He paused and looked me in the eyes. They were a warm brown, and right then, they held a seriousness that seemed older than his 32 years. I wanted to talk to you about something a little different. My mind went blank. All my worst-case scenarios disappeared. Different could be anything, and from him, it was impossible to guess. I just nodded, my mouth too dry to speak, and waited. The city noises from outside were a distant hum, a background sound to this sudden, focused moment in the room. The feeling wasn't fear anymore. It was curiosity and the sense that something unplanned was about to happen. He finally spoke again, looking right at me. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I've been looking at some of the old project files from before I started here. The community projects from about 10 or 15 years ago. Community projects. That felt like a lifetime ago at this company. I had been very involved in them, very passionate about them. We worked with local schools and raised money for charity, things that felt real. But those programs were stopped when money got tight." "Yes," I said, my voice a bit rough. "I remember them. I helped create a few of those." Daniel nodded slowly, a tiny smile on his face. "I know. Your name is all over the old reports, not just as part of the team, Sarah, but as the leader. The main ideas, the planning, a lot of it came from you." This was a shock. I thought all that effort was long forgotten. To hear him talk about it now was confusing. "That was a long time ago," I said, a little defensively. "The company had different goals then, maybe," he said, moving back toward the window. He wasn't pacing like he usually did, but he still had a restless energy. But I was looking at the good results, good press, how happy it made the employees, the real help it provided. It was impressive, Sarah. Really. I felt myself blush. A compliment, especially from a boss, was rare. From him, it was almost unheard of. "Thank you," I whispered, still unsure what this was all about. Was he just being nice before giving me bad news? He walked back and sat in the other visitor chair, pulling it closer so we were almost knee to knee. The big desk was no longer between us, and some of my fear started to fade, replaced by curiosity. "Sarah," he said, leaning forward, "the reason I called you in here is that the higher-ups are starting to talk about helping the community again, not just as a nice word in a report, but as something real we need to do." My heart fluttered, but this time with hope and excitement, feelings I hadn't connected with my job in a very long time. "They're looking for ideas," Daniel went on, "and most of the new ideas I've seen are boring and unoriginal." He wrinkled his nose. "But then I found your old files, Sarah. They weren't boring. They had heart. They were real." He paused, and his eyes seemed to hold a real respect for me. "I know you've been doing your current job for a long time," he said carefully, "and you do it very well. Everyone says you're reliable." I thought, here comes the but. "But," he continued, "when I was reading those reports, I wondered, is your current job really making you happy? Does it use all of your skills?" The question was so direct and personal. It wasn't about my work numbers. It was about me. For years, I had just assumed nobody at the top saw me as anything more than my job title. I really enjoyed that. "Work," I managed to say. "It felt like we were making a difference." "Exactly," Daniel said, his eyes bright. "Making a difference. That's what's missing. That's what I want to bring back." He leaned back. "Look, Sarah, I have an idea. It's not official yet, but if it happens, I can't imagine anyone better to lead it." My mind was spinning. Lead me? After all these years of feeling like I was in the background, was he really offering me a big new opportunity? The room, which had felt scary, now felt full of possibility. The city lights were starting to turn on, and I felt a little spark of that light inside me. "I'm thinking of a new department," he said, his voice full of energy, focused on real community projects. "And I need someone to build it from the start. Someone who understands this company and our community, and who has a real passion for it. Someone with a history of doing it well, even if that history is a little old." He smiled then, a real smile that made me feel at ease. I stared at him, trying to take in what he was saying. A new department, with me in charge. It felt like a dream I had given up on long ago. "Daniel, I don't know what to say," I stuttered. This was about more than a job. It was about being seen for the things I cared about. "It's a huge job," he agreed, "and it won't be easy. But I believe it's important for the soul of this company." He paused. "And I believe you can do it, Sarah." I saw the vision and the planning in those old reports. The heart. It's all there. The word heart hit me hard. It felt like a window had been opened in a closed room, letting in fresh air. "What would the job be?" I asked, my voice shaky but stronger now. "That's the best part, Sarah," he said, excited. "You would mostly define it. You would create the plan, find partners, and build a small team. You'd have a budget and my complete support. You would get to shape how this company gives back to the world." He waited, letting me think. It felt like we were two colleagues planning something exciting. He wasn't just the kid boss anymore, he was a leader. "This is a lot to think about," I said with a small, shaky smile. "You've definitely given me something to think about." "I know," he said softly. "Take your time, talk to your family." He glanced at the photo on his desk. This isn't just a new job, Sarah. It's a chance to build a legacy for you and for the company. A legacy, the word was full of meaning. The idea that my legacy could be something more than just being a good worker was amazing. Thank you, Daniel, I said, my voice firm now. Thank you for seeing something in me that I thought was gone. It means more than you know. You deserve the credit, Sarah, he said with a warm smile. You did the work. I just found the map. He stood, and I stood too, feeling lighter than I had in years. The tiredness I usually felt at the end of the day was gone. Think about it, he said as he walked me to the door. We'll talk again next week. He paused. And Sarah, whatever you choose, I want you to know how much I value what you've done for this company in the past and now. Those last words made me feel truly respected, not just for my work, but for who I am. As I walked back down the hall, the lights seemed brighter, the world more full of hope. The walk back to my desk wasn't a retreat. It was a walk toward a future I hadn't even dared to dream of just hours ago. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. I thought, a funny random line from the internet popping into my head. But my own story suddenly felt like it was just getting to the good part. The kid boss had surprised me. He had given me back a piece of myself.